Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Spider-Verse Retrospectives, and today we're going to be continuing our discussion on the Spider-Gwen tie-ins to Spider-Geddon as we take a look at Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider number 3. So, last time on Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider. So when Spider-Gwen and the rest of the Web Warriors went to go confront the Inheritors on Earth 616, things did not go so well. Basically, Otto's lab, where the Inheritors were being revived, wound up having to get blown up, and Gwen sadly was there at Ground Zero, with her web watch being stolen by Verna, and her being thrown into the multiverse, eventually landing in some random parallel universe. In an attempt to try and find a way out, she wound up coming to blows with the Green Goblin of this world, and who she eventually learned was actually this world's Gwen Stacy. As such, after that battle, she wound up meeting the Peter Parker of this world, who went on to explain that this world did have a Spider-Man once, but sadly things did not go well. As in this world, Harry Osborn was Spider-Man and the Green Goblin was like his partner. But then after a battle with the Sandman, where things kind of went horribly wrong, Harry was killed and Gwen's gear was damaged. And since the technology was biotechnological, it kind of trapped her in a never-ending cycle of grief. As not only did Harry die in that battle, but also her father. And as a result, she's been stuck as a full-on supervillain Green Goblin for a while now. As such, in an attempt to try and heal the Gwen Goblin, as we're going to call her, Peter wound up essentially blackmailing Spider-Gwen into helping by stating that this world's Gwen Stacy was an expert when it came to technology, so she might be able to help her find a way to get out of this world and get back into the main fight in Spider-Geddon. And since Peter's forte is genetics, he might be able to find a way to ensure that Gwen can survive the actual journey. And so Gwen reluctantly agreed to help help Peter fix this world's Gwen, with them both meeting up with this world's MJ, who in turn took Gwen to go meet with the Glory Grant and Betty Brant of this Earth, since they're investigative reporters looking into the affairs of the Green Goblin, which is actually where this issue begins, as we see MJ and Gwen meeting up with Glory and Betty. And what I love is that while MJ tries presenting Spider-Gwen off as their world's Gwen Stacy, Glory and Betty don't buy it, mostly because she's too young. Yeah, basically, yeah, something about the whole with Spider-Gwen is that apparently she's, like, still in high school, so she's still, like, very young and so forth, so, and the thing is, this world's Gwen Stacy was old enough to actually be working at Oscorp, so yeah, even they're like, no, that's not Gwen, she's too young. With MJ trying to offer the cover story of, no, actually, she's been at a salon. It's been doing wonders for her. Makes her skin look so much younger, which, yeah, Gloria and Betty still don't completely buy it, but they do kind of roll with it. Especially when they want to ask Gwen about especially when they want to ask Gwen details about the Green Goblin, which MJ once again gets defensive of. But either way, eventually, Gloria and Betty do agree to have Gwen Glory and Betty do allow MJ and Gwen to stick around and help them sift through their information, as MJ states that she wants Gwen's help in order to find the Goblin, which is kind of the truth, but essentially they just go through a bunch of stuff, and Gwen is a little uncertain of their thing, and as it turns out, this comic reveals that the Gwen Goblin has kind of been a villain for years now, which really kind of puts into perspective just how badly she's gone off the deep end, so to speak. And as a result, Spider-Gwen starts wondering if they can even find her at all. But then she finds a lead. Not one that kind of screams at everybody else, but it does speak to Gwen specifically. Mostly because as she sifts through all the information that Glory and Betty found, she finds a picture of a warehouse. Specifically, the warehouse where, in her universe, she and the Mary Janes practice. As such, she asks Glory and Betty if they actually know anything about this place or why it's even in their information at all, and it turns out that the Gwen Goblin has been sighted kind of flying around that place at times, but no one's ever been able to find any links between her and this place. And without really any valid proof, nobody's been actually allowed to investigate, especially since the place is barred off as apparently there's asbestos there, so no one's really wanted to go and check it out. But Gwen believes that because the multiverse is consisting of patterns and repeating events across infinite timelines, then maybe this place is just as important to the Gwen Goblin as it is to Spider-Gwen. As such, under the excuse of she wants something to eat, she grabs Mary Jane and they both bolt out, though Glory and Betty know that they're clearly up to something and try to follow them. However, Gwen tells MJ that they need to go to the warehouse as she believes that that's where the Gwen Goblin is, and what I love is that for one panel, you see Mary Jane just have like like this brief moment of hope, which it's actually drawn really well. The art, like the way they drew her expression there, it definitely looks like that's someone who is long kind of given up, but still keeps going on the slim chance things might work out. Now finally being thrown a line, and her realizing that they may have finally gotten a chance to actually confront this world's Gwen. You can see that actually resonates with Mary Jane a bit. But either way, with this bit of information, Mary Jane asks what Gwen wants her to do. So Gwen just tells her to trust her just for a little bit. Mary Jane says they do, and so Gwen shifts into her Spidey jammies. Which what I love is that when Mary Jane sees her, she's legitimately shocked, as I'm guessing there was like a part of her that didn't fully believe that Gwen was the Spider-Woman of her Earth. But either way, Gwen ends up opening up a window and she grabs Mary Jane and they swing away with Mary Jane screaming the whole time. Unfortunately, Betty and Glory do end up finding them. More specifically, they see Gwen swinging away in the distance, and they're able to put two and two together and realize that they're probably heading to the warehouse, and so Glory and Betty drive there themselves. Ultimately, Gwen and Mary Jane manage to make it there first because, well, it's web slinging. And so they manage to slip into the warehouse, and sure enough, yep, this is in fact the Gwen Goblin's, well, hideout. As it turns out that while the warehouse is still mostly a dump, there's like a billboard containing information regarding the death of Spider-Man. There's like pictures of people up there. There's clear graffiti that was made by Gwen. This is clearly where she puts her feet up when she's not out blowing things up for the sake of blowing things up. So clearly they did find the right place, but for whatever reason, the Gwen Goblin is nowhere to be found, which is a little surprising, but ultimately that doesn't last long, as Gwen's spider sense triggers and she immediately pushes Mary Jane out of the way, just in time to avoid being hit by a pumpkin bomb. As such, Gwen tells Mary Jane to stay back, she ends up and so the two Gwen Stacys end up duking it out, with the Gwen Goblin calling her spider-themed counterpart a liar because, well, this world already had a Spider-Man, and that was Harry Osborn, and this person is clearly not Harry. So basically, as such, from there, it's actually a pretty cool fight scene as we see Spider-Gwen and the Gwen Goblin just duking it out, because, well, it's Spider-Man versus the Green Goblin. It's really cool. And what I like too is that Gwen has to constantly kind of be on the defensive as well, because while she knows she can't let the Gwen Goblin kill her, she also can't really hurt her too bad, because again, she needs her if she wants to be able to escape this reality, and she can't, and well, the Gwen Goblin can't really do anything if she's got like a broken arm or something. So Gwen does need to be careful, though thankfully Spider-Gwen is able to get through to her Goblin counterpart by actually calling her by name, which does trigger the Gwen Goblin for a second, but she quickly falls back into the Goblin persona as she just keeps screaming at Spider-Gwen that she's a liar. But as this is going on, Betty and Glory are actually outside the warehouse, and they do end up overhearing the whole conversation. And ultimately, they do hear snippets of what the Gwen Goblin is screaming out, including that Harry Osborn was Spider-Man, and of course, they even see the Gwen Goblin unmasked, as Spider-Gwen, in an attempt to try and get through to her, ends up throwing a web line to her mask and ripping it off, allowing us to see Gwen Stacy underneath. Of course, as a result of this, the Gwen Goblin tries going right for her mask, but it's at this point when Mary Jane finally comes up and tries to just call out to Gwen. And while Spider-Gwen tries telling Mary Jane to leave, well, MJ isn't leaving because, well, she thinks that the real Gwen Stacy is still in there. Mostly because every time she threw a pumpkin bomb near MJ, she missed. Every time. And so she starts kind of reaching out to the Gwen Goblin, and it actually starts triggering something. I think this might be partially because Spider-Gwen managed to get the Goblin's mask off of her, which, again, as they stated, part of the reason why she's as insane as she is because her technology is kind of feeding her into a loop, and essentially you can assume that the mask is probably part of that loop, and so by removing the mask, it kind of broke the circuit a little. Not enough to completely bring Gwen Stacy back to the surface, but enough to allow her true personality to shine a little bit. And as a result, when Mary Jane comes closer, the Gwen Goblin recognizes her and even calls her by name. And as a result, Mary Jane just starts pleading with her, saying, "We can help you. We can do things right. I know you." It's like, "I know you. Come on." And it works. The Gwen Goblin starts getting closer and closer, and essentially just stops. She gets closer to Mary Jane and just says, "I'm scared. I need help, please." And it's not an act. She's not trying to lull Mary Jane into a false sense of security. She's genuinely afraid. And Mary Jane says, "It's okay. We can help you. We can fix you." And so the pair embrace in a hug. It's genuinely sweet. I dig it. So, but yeah. But yeah. But yeah, it looks like the Gwen Goblin is, well, calmed down. And as a result of this, Spider-Gwen says that she made a deal and they need to carry it out, and Mary Jane agrees. Though what I do like is that the Gwen Goblin asks who the hell Spider-Gwen is, and so when she unmasks herself, she's like, "Oh, you're me." She's like, "Oh, you're me, and you're made of spiders," before she faints. But basically, at this point, Betty and Gloria are inside the warehouse. So I think they got in there a little while before the Gwen Goblin calmed down. And while they are now proven right in that the Gwen Stacy was really the Green Goblin, they don't plan to print the story, mostly because they understand the importance of why she keeps it a secret. Though they do state that they won't tell anyone, especially that they'll probably only stay quiet if Gwen just drops the whole Goblin persona at all. Because after all, they do respect what she and Spider-Man did for the city while they were both good. And again, she has friends that care about her, but she still did a lot of bad. So just stop. And that seems agreeable. As such, Betty and Glory offer to bring Mary Jane and the Goblin back with them, since they drove here in their car. But Gwen decides that she'll just meet them back at the lab, and so she swings away, happy that she might actually be able to get home. Unfortunately, though, the process of turning the Green Goblin back into Gwen Stacy is kind of a process, as while everyone is able to get Gwen back to the lab. Well, it's biotechnology. It's linked with her physiology. And part of the reason why she was as insane as she was because it was so intrinsically linked with her who she was. So turning off the technology and removing it, it's a process. It's going to be a kind of a process. So it actually takes all day for them to fully kind of separate the Goblin from Gwen, which does kind of make Spider-Gwen a bit impatient, but again, you can kind of buy it, because you can kind of understand why she's impatient. After all, her friends are out there fighting in a war against these monstrous vampiric creatures that want to feast on their life essence. Of course she wants to get right back into the fight. But ultimately, the procedure is successful. Gwen Stacy is now back to normal, though Peter does think that maybe she should take some rest, recharge her batteries. But she's not taking anything lying down, and thankfully, true to Peter's word, she does assist her spider counterpart in creating a means of jumping between universes. Specifically, she makes a necklace, one that actually that is keyed into the specific radiation that specific exotic radiation that Gwen herself emits, since, well, she's not from their universe. And on top of that, it's keyed to Gwen's DNA so that only she can use it. And put simply, all she has to do is just hold the necklace and think really hard, and she can open a portal to any universe that she wants. And so Gwen takes the necklace, and sure enough, it works like a charm, as it manages to open up a portal, and Gwen's now finally just excited that she can leave. And so, bidding adieu to her counterpart, to Mary Jane and Peter, she jumps through the portal and gets ready to go back into Spider-Geddon, most likely going to gather that army we saw her have at the end of the story. And so the comic ends with Peter, Mary Jane, and Gwen watching her leave, and the Gwen that was the Goblin asking, "Do you think we'll see her again?" And Peter saying, "I hope not. I think she wants to kill me." And so, yeah, that's where the story ends. So, first, let's talk about my thoughts on the issue. Honestly, I think this is a good finale. While I kind of was losing a little steam when I looked at last issue, as that was mostly expository and really didn't have a lot of action to it, This one, I think, really kind of makes up for it, because one thing, we do get some genuinely cool superhero action when we see Spider-Gwen confronting her Goblin counterpart, but likewise, it also has, well, some genuinely good emotional bits. But I was honestly kind of expecting it to not land in that regard, because a flaw that I kind of noticed with kind of cramming everything so compactly into the second issue was that it didn't really allow a lot of the emotional bits to fully sink in. And while you do, and like with Gwen, while you do sympathize with Peter and Mary Jane in their plight when they want to help their world's Gwen Stacy, well, the counter argument is they kind of force her into helping them, even though she knows that her friends are probably in danger and they need to take priority. But nope, these random strangers that look like people she knows say, "No, we need your help. We need you to stay here and give us our edge," which did kind of just put a bad taste in my mouth, because essentially she was being shanghaied into assisting them, even though she has other priorities. But I will give credit where it's due. Seeing the Gwen Goblin start breaking out of her Goblin persona and going back into Gwen Stacy, I like that. I genuinely like that. Just seeing them, I kind of you can, for starters, during the battle between Spider-Gwen and the Goblin, what I like is that you do still see snippets of Gwen Stacy in there, like how she continually called her Spider counterpart a liar because in her mind there was only one Spider-Man, Harry, and well, he's dead. So she looks at Spider-Gwen and she just thinks that she's an imposter, a fraud, a sham. She can't really live up to the name. Of course she does this not knowing that that's another version of her, but I digress. And so likewise, when Spider-Gwen calls her by her real name, she does hesitate briefly before falling back into the Goblin persona. Clearly, you can tell that there is a bit of Gwen Stacy still in there, fighting for control, if the ending of issue 2 didn't give you any indication. But I do like how they showcase it throughout. You can tell that in a way, you can kind of see why she does keep falling back into that persona. Because, well, like Peter said, she's in a never-ending loop of fear, anger, and grief. And so, to a degree, while she knows what she's become and wants to fix it, there probably could be a part of her that wants to just fall back into the madness. Because if she doesn't fall back into the madness, that means she'll have to start accepting all that grief, accepting all the loss that comes with it. And as a result of that, she kind of has to face her own emotions, which can probably explain why, even though we see brief snippets of the real Gwen Stacy coming out, she still keeps falling back into the Goblin persona, because ultimately there's still a part of her mind that doesn't want to accept all the bad shit that's happened to her, and is more content to stay here living out this psychotic fantasy rather than accept reality. But it isn't until she's confronted by people that she loves, people that tell her it's okay, you're still our friend and we want to help you, that help kind of bring her back to the surface and make her realize that she does need to confront this stuff. And I like that. It's genuinely nice. And so seeing, it's probably good, which again, going back to that grief thing, it probably would explain why she could die for the mask, because she would rather be the Goblin than Gwen Stacy. But yet again, because Mary Jane is there and kind of starts bringing out the best parts of her again, she starts realizing that there are still people there that care about her regardless of what's happened, and that she still has something to go back to. And that's what allows her to actually start breaking free from the Goblin persona. Now again, you could also make the argument, well, Gwen removed a part of the suit, which could probably be like breaking a bit of the circuitry that was going throughout the suit, but I liked again to just kind of think that maybe Mary Jane did reach the small part of that Gwen Stacy that did want to be saved. So I do like that. I do legitimately like that. And even seeing Mary Jane and her and this world's Gwen actually hugging and embracing knowing that they can actually help her, it's actually legitimately sweet, and I dig it. So I will give credit where it's due. The ending does hit home for me. And to finally have Spider-Gwen actually have a means of finally escaping this world, again, it's a good payoff, and it's what allows her to ultimately get paid, and it's what ultimately allows her to be the big damn hero at the end of Spider-Geddon, as because of this little necklace, she was able to gather more Spideys to join the army and help the other spiders when they confronted the inheritors at the climax of Spider-Geddon. So I dig that. I think that's legitimately good, and I think that's legitimately good. And while it did kind of meander in the middle of the storyline, I'll give credit where it's due. I think the Spider-Gwen tie-ins so far are actually good. And this storyline with Gwen trapped inside the universe, it's actually enjoyable. It's not perfect by any means. The middle, I think, is the worst part for me, as issue 2 of this comic, it's just exposition, and it's kind of just dull exposition. Not awful, but dull. It kind of goes a little flat in terms of emotional depth, especially since they try and get all the good emotional bits out as soon as you can. Yeah, especially since they try and get all the emotional bits out as much as they can, and sadly, it doesn't really pay off as well as I would like. So I do kind of find that a bit annoying, especially since, again, Gwen was essentially just blackmailed into helping Peter and Mary Jane save their world's Gwen. But I'll give credit where it's due. The ending, I think, is what saves it. I actually do find myself caring about the Gwen Goblin and her plight. I like seeing her and Spider-Gwen duking it out, and the ending when they finally do break through to Gwen Stacy underneath and are able to get the Goblin technology off of her. I think that's a nice payoff, especially with the Gwen Goblin actually, I call her the Gwen Goblin differentiator. Either way, it's nice to see this world's Gwen helping her spider counterpart by creating the necklace that Gwen is able to use to jump between universes. And guess what? She keeps the necklace because she does use it again for future comics and so forth. So again, I dig it. It's good stuff. So on the whole, I do think issue 3 of Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider is pretty good. And if I have to state my thoughts on this storyline and tie into Spider-Geddon, I think it's enjoyable. It's not perfect, it's not great, but it is enjoyable. It does have enough emotional moments that you can still be invested in the story. I like still seeing more of Gwen, and I did legitimately like exploring this new universe and meeting these alternate versions of characters that we know, which is what I always love when dealing with multiversal stuff. But I will also say it did kind of fall flat in some areas, and the emotional bits, while good, could have kind of been executed better, especially in the middle issue. But on the whole, I still find this to be an enjoyable storyline, and I still find myself, and it definitely, I think, it fits in perfectly with Spider-Geddon. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. I thank you for watching, and, well, while we are done with those 3 issues, we're still not done with the Spider-Gwen tie-ins. We still got one more issue left, and, well, with the Web of Life and Destiny now destroyed, and Gwen being one of the few people in the multiverse, that means it falls on her to deliver the condolences to the loved ones of the lost. So I hope to see you on Saturday as we see the epilogue to Spider-Geddon. So until then, I hope you have a good Thursday, and take care.